Hello there, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a card for you that's really very simple, but it uses an intricate stamp. I'm going to use mostly embossing, and I'm going to do some fussy cutting, and that's about it. So I've got some card bases. These were 4 1/4 by 11 inches, so basically this was just an 8 1/2 by 11 piece of cardstock that I cut in half, and now I have scored those at 5 1/2 inches, so now I have 2 card bases. And I'm going to use the My Favorite Things Fresh Cut Flowers background stamp. I have seen some people do some beautiful things with this stamp, and I plan to do that in the future as well, but I wanted to show you a way you can have a very pretty card with a very simple look, even using a very intricate stamp. So I'm putting this inside of my stamp platform, and I am generously covering that with my embossing bag. Now I probably put too much on there. Maybe I didn't. It all depends, I think, on the embossing powder that I use. But I inked it up with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I am going to use some embossing powder that I'm no joke, I'm not kidding. I've had it for as long as my daughter has been alive. So it's about 17 years old. It's from Stampin' Up. It's their Fine Detail Black. But it's the only black I have, so that's what I am going to use. And I don't know if there's a shelf life on embossing powder. It worked okay, but again, I'm not sure with the embossing bag if that was part of the, if I put too much on there, or if my embossing powder is just like, it's had its day. So I don't know. Anyway, so I grabbed my heat tool after I covered that with my embossing powder, and I'm just going to heat that until that is smooth and melted. And this is where there's a little bit of an issue. It isn't as black in some of those areas, even though I know it was covered there. Some of that white embossing bag powder came through. But I did want to make sure that I was generous with the embossing bag, because I didn't want a bunch of black specks, because when you're working with black embossing powder, those little black specks will show up everywhere. So now I'm just using some cream cardstock. This was some Nina 80 pound. And I've got that inside of my stamp platform, and I'm going to ink that up once again with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'm going to do the exact same thing and cover that with that black embossing powder that I have. And I wasn't as crazy with my embossing bag, but I do end up getting some specks in different places because I wasn't as generous. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I'll have to try it out with some different powders because, like I said, this stuff is 17 years old. So I'll just, once again, heat that till it's smooth and melted. And then I'm going to set that off to the side to kind of dry. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing with the other blue panel that I have. And this is just some stuff in my stash. But I'm going to use this Raven Sparkle from Brutus Monroe. I just wanted to see how this would look, since I was focusing mostly on the embossing. So I'll ink that up again with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then I will cover that with the Raven Sparkle embossing powder. And this stuff is so beautiful. And it actually does a pretty good job of covering fine detail images. So what you want to do when you start to heat set this is start underneath so you don't blow the sparkle everywhere. And then once it starts to melt, you can move to the top, which is what I'm doing here. And I really love how that looks on that dark background. So pretty. So then I will once again move on to the cream colored cardstock. And again, I didn't cover this as liberally with my embossing bag, and so I do get some of that Raven Sparkle, but that's okay. I mean, it's really pretty, so, you know, can you ever have enough sparkle? So it's the same thing for both these cards, just using a different kind of embossing powder. And I don't know which one was my favorite, because I think they both have their own subtle look. So the first one, just using regular black embossing powder, is really pretty. But this one, I mean, like I said, you can't beat the sparkle. So I end up fussy cutting these out once they're dry and I've cleaned up my mess. I will fussy cut these out, and I don't show you the whole process, but what you want to do when you fussy cut these is you want to get close to the line. You don't want to be right on the line, simply because this is embossed. If it wasn't embossed, you could go right up on that line. But when you do have a little bit of that line, you'll want to use a Memento black marker or something similar, and I will link down below to what I used. And I do feel bad because I end up popping this on my panels. But the problem is I thought I hit record when I put the foam tape on the back of all my images and popped them up, but I didn't hit record. So I do apologize that you don't get to see that part. So now I'm moving on to the sentiment. This sentiment comes from the My Favorite Things Kind Words stamp set, and I'm just inking up my sentiment with Versamark ink, which is just a clear sticky ink. I did that twice, and then I'm going to cover that with some fine detail white embossing powder, and this is just on some lightweight vellum. So when you heat this, you're going to want to make sure that you keep that heat tool moving. Make sure it's good and hot before you bring it there, and then keep it moving so that you don't warp or burn the vellum, because you can do that. Just ask me how I know. And so once that's done and I've let that cool a little bit, I will trim that down using my paper trimmer. And then I'm going to do something neat with this. So with vellum, when you try to adhere that to something, any glue that you use will show through, because obviously it's a see-through kind of paper. So I was watching Amy R. the other day from Prairie Paper and Ink, and I had forgotten that you could use your Xyron sticker makers, and it will completely cover the back with your tape, which is fantastic, right? And I've done that before. I just don't know why I didn't think to do it. And I love my Xyron sticker maker, so I decided to stick both of these through there. Turn them both into stickers, and then you just rub that really, really well to make sure that all the sticker transfer gets to the back of your vellum. Pull off that sheet, that cover sheet, and then you have these two beautiful vellum stickers that are not going to show the adhesive through the back because they're completely covered. And then you just stick them down. I don't know why I forgot to do that. So thank you, Amy R. And then for a final bit of embellishment on these cards, because I wanted these to be simple, I thought about doing clear drops, but I knew that this needed just another pop of color, so I ended up grabbing my Yellow Bird Nouveau glitter drops. And I'm just going to put a few of those drops down. My drops look terrible right now, but I will bang those on top of a embossing powder container. And then I'm just kind of stippling that in that center flower there. And I'll do it on the other one as well. But yeah, so because they're not perfectly round and I want to flatten them just a little bit, I will take one of those embossing containers and I will hit that against there, just tapping it down pretty hard. And then you can get those to flatten out a little bit and to kind of even out as well. And so there they are. That's the regular embossing powder. And then this one is the Raven Sparkle. I just love how these turned out, and I will have everything that I used linked down below. So if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by.